Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan and it's not Spawn here. It is day 39 of my comic review video day calendar, and one of the purposes of this series is to show you cool things in my collection that are rarer or more valuable or kind of unusual. And this one today is going to be a weird thing to read out of context outside of the rest of the run, so I might be a little bit more brief, famous last words from me, right, about the story today, but I mostly just wanted to show you this as a collectible, and this is, I'm going to stagger these throughout the year. I've got a few cool things like this that I want to show you. This is the only CG Seed book that I own right now. I've never really gotten into the grading thing, but my dad gave me this for my birthday last year, and I showed this off in some show already, but you might not have seen it. I think it was a Captain Logan show or something, so unless you watch all the lengthy streams, you won't know about this. But anyway, this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 58. This was graded as an 8.5 by CBCS. And this is, of course, from the IDW run, which is one of my absolute favorite runs in comics. And I have not kept up with that recently. I kind of lost interest after Tom Waltz left. I tried the first few issues after that, and I thought it was kind of slow moving, and I couldn't get into the status quo. But I might try to jump back into that at some point and see how it is now. But anyway, this was signed by Kevin Eastman. So I do indeed have a Kevin Eastman signature now. Did not get this, of course, signed myself. I had the opportunity a few years back to stand in a line at a convention, our big one out here in Kansas City, Planet Comic-Con, and get something signed by Kevin Eastman. And I was too busy that show. I think I was working in that show, and I had too much going on, so I ended up not doing that. But I kind of regretted that a little bit and couldn't believe that my dad got his hands on this, and it sounds like for a pretty decent deal. My dad runs a flea market. He's kind of in the junk business, and he'll occasionally run into really neat things like this. And so I just got really lucky that he was able to procure this for me. But in case you're thinking, oh, how do you know for sure that that's an authentic Kevin Eastman signature? Never fear, because the fact that it is encased in this plastic and was graded by CBCS is the certificate of authenticity all by itself. They would not have graded this if that was not a legitimate signature. And so you can be fairly certain that it is. If they messed up things like that, quite often they would probably go out of business pretty quickly. So anyway, here is the regular cover. I think this is the normal retail cover here, and the Kevin Eastman cover here was a subscription variant, and I didn't pull out. I went ahead and read this in digital, because obviously when you have a graded book, you can't open this. This is sealed. This is encased. If you break the seal, it's not graded anymore, and you certainly don't want to do that. So you can't read this. This now is a is just a collectible, just a wall hanging, but I actually don't know which. I think I also have this cover in my regular run when I was buying these as they were coming out, but or maybe it's this. I can't remember. But anyway, so let me go ahead and run down the story here real quick. Like I said, this is in the middle of an arc. As always, these things don't read super great all by themselves, of course. This is from 2016, so this is the most recent thing I will have talked about in Not Spawn year, and I did something from the 2010s, I think, just the other day, Gotham City Sirens, and said that I'm mostly doing older stuff and stuff from my childhood and 80s and 90s stuff and some before, and I will continue to do that, but this one I wanted to go ahead and knock out just because it's a neat piece in my collection. So just real briefly, what happens in this issue? Well, this is the origin for Leatherhead, and Tom Waltz did such a good job reinventing a lot of these characters that you hadn't necessarily seen since the 1987 cartoon, or that, well, I should say some of them were retooled for the 2012 show as well, but he's kind of reinventing a lot of characters to be a little bit more complex and three-dimensional, give them some more dimension, and he does such a good job taking all the toys from my childhood as an adult and making a really compelling, serious, kind of stirring story out of them, with a lot of emotional complexity. It's not just good guys versus bad guys. There's, a lot more to it than that, and you have the inherent absurdity of the situation in dealing with mutates and ninjas and aliens and characters from Dimension X, etc., etc. But there's so many different complex themes happening with Ninja Turtles. A lot of really interesting politics and war and genocide and racism and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so with this particular character, again, kind of going back to the toy box, what do you do with Leatherhead? I never cared about Leatherhead when I was a kid, by the way. There's a character that shows up in a few episodes of the '87 show, and he's kind of, if memory serves, he's got a hat, and he's kind of Cajun-like, and he never really did anything for me. I loved Rat King. I loved Metalhead, and Tom Waltz's Metalhead is, I think, just for me, because I've always loved that character, is the coolest reinvention of anything in this. But Leatherhead is really compelling the way he handles this, and a super tragic character. He is kind of the classic monster who has it in him to be more than the sum of his parts, but he ultimately chooses to embrace the monster because it's basically been beaten into him that he can't be any more than that. He feels like he's not being allowed to evolve and grow and be a better person, even though you can see through and through with, in his bones that he is a compassionate, intelligent character. And it's really sad what happens to him. And so he's given the Turtles this line of a more benevolent backstory from the previous issue. I don't remember what lie exactly he tells the Turtles, but it's not the truth. The end of the last issue, he is attacked half of the Turtles team, and they're in trouble they're real hurt in a tunnel. And coming into this issue, the other Turtles think that he is on their side, and it turns out that he has done some pretty awful things. And so we get into his background. Right at the beginning here, we've got some good guy Utroms that are trying to come to terms with the fact that one of their own, one of their friends, was a lieutenant for Krang, who helped him with his attempted genocide, and they don't want to believe it. And there is a lot of talk about who to believe and loyalty and that kind of thing, and they've got this kind of rude awakening that some people will just follow orders and do whatever they're told, no matter what the horrible ends of that will be. So some really heavy issues that we're dealing with here, and this is kind of the aftermath of the Technodrome event where Krang has Baxter Stockman build the Technodrome. This was happening in the background for a lot of issues, and he is using, in this continuity, the Technodrome is a terraforming machine. So like it has a actual specific purpose instead of just being a base where the bad guys work out of, driving around like the Legion of Doom base in Super Friends. And he successfully managed to ruin the environment on just this island, just Burnow Island, and that's the reason that the Turtles and everybody are having, besides the Utroms, are having to wear headgear that they can breathe out of, because he was trying to destroy humanity and, again, cause genocide so that he can add the Earth to the Utrom Empire. And make it so that only Utroms can breathe here. So it's kind of the Man of Steel plot. And I'm not sure if Waltz could have. No, I wouldn't think so. I don't think Waltz got this from Man of Steel. It seemed like there was something in the air in the early 2010s that a lot of science fiction stories were going to these terraforming plots. But now that I'm thinking about it, like, I don't think we see the Technodrome until after that movie has come out. But my guess is he's already got that planned out from pretty close to the beginning. I don't remember how early we see our first glimpse of the Technodrome. I think it's within the first 20, 25 issues. But anyway, so while that's going on, you've got the other... Pardon me. I was trying to. So I was getting a spam call on my phone, and I was trying to hang up on it, and then I accidentally answered it, and then the guy on the spam call was trying to talk to me while I'm in the middle of shooting this. I'm not going to edit that out. Anyway, so you've got also a couple of rock soldiers from Dimension X that are with the Turtles in the tunnel here, General Trag and Granitor, and they're kind of unlikely allies that are helping the Turtles right now, and we get the background from Granitor about what really happened to Leatherhead. And like I said, it's really sad, it's really tragic, you can't help but sympathize with him, and you just want to see him overcome this horrible trauma where he's been beaten down by Krang. He was experimented on. Krang finds him in the middle of a swamp or something and kind of makes him his pet. And this is kind of like his initial plan before he comes up with the Technodrome. And I like the idea that Krang starts in the real typical build a army of mutates, of monsters, from his perspective anyway, before he comes up with the Technodrome, that he had an idea that kind of failed initially, or that he just kind of lost interest in and decided to try this other thing. That seemed real believable to me with the way Krang has been characterized, but also I just like the realism of you've got these really ambitious world domination plans. Maybe your first idea doesn't work out, and so you try something different. And both of them at this point feel like kind of typical take over the world plots now, because we haven't been able to get away from the terraforming thing either now. But I like that he starts in that place, and so the idea is he's trying to groom Leatherhead to be part of this army, to be his first recruit, and whenever things go well, Krang is kind of palling around with him as his buddy. You see him in this panel playing some kind of board game, some version of chess or something with him, and then we're told that when things go really terribly, he's being tortured, and he was, again, horribly, brutally experimented on, and he's got kind of a almost Bane-like backstory, and it's like if you took like I think Austin would like this quite a bit, because it's kind of like if you took Killer Croc and you blended him with Bane and you gave him that kind of backstory. And so even though he is trying to get revenge on the other Utroms, what he really wants is just to be left alone and find some other place to live. But he is attacking our heroes because they're palling around with what he sees as his enemies. And so we get several pages of a fight with him, and he just wants a portal that Donatello is able to open for him to, again, find some place to go live all by himself. And one thing I'm a little bit confused about is why Raphael doesn't want to let him go. Like, I get that he got attacked and brutalized, and he's upset about that, and of course, Raphael's got his famous temper here, but why? But when you get to the end of this, Leatherhead reveals that all he wants is to go find a home. And Raphael's like, no, don't let him do that. And Donatello's like, no, we have to let him go because I owe him. He saved my life, earlier in a previous issue. And I don't get why Raphael wouldn't just want to get rid of him anyway. So that was kind of odd. But other than that, this is a real kind of. I mean, this is an exciting issue, especially for kind of an aftermath thing where you're not really expecting this level of I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Of violence, of excitement, and then it's also just real tragic. It's real kind of heartbreaking what has happened to Leatherhead, and I love Waltz's ability to make you really care about these inherently absurd, bizarre kind of characters that were initially just created to be action figures. It's wonderful, and so he has sort of a happy ending where he's able to just run off and go jump in the river and go find a home for himself. Some really strange, crazy fun stuff happens with Leatherhead way later on regarding Krang, which I won't reveal if you're not familiar with this material and you want to read it. But this is my absolute favorite iteration of Ninja Turtles, and I know I talk this up still all the time, but it's fantastic. It's that good. And even if you stop where I stopped, there's so much material to read. I mean, I read the first 100 issues of this series and all of the miniseries connected to it. It's all real involved. It's got a wonderful sense of continuity. It's real engaging material. The quality is real consistent throughout this, and it's got its slumps, it's got its slow periods, but it's always interesting and worth reading, or at least interesting enough. At the end of this, Kitsune shows up, and if you haven't read any of this, I'm not going to go through who exactly she is. She has to do with the pantheon of gods in the series. Which I think more recently they've brought back and done some things with too, with Rat King and all of that. But she shows up and she's got Splinter, so it's a big cliffhanger. What exactly is happening with that? Something else I wanted to mention real quick. Another thing that Walt sometimes does, and maybe he could do this even more, that I like, is he'll give the turtles an accoutrement for whatever story we're telling that makes perfect sense and comes naturally out of the situation, but out of context makes them look like action figure variants. Which I really appreciate, where he's keeping the aesthetic and the trappings of it, the fun, 80s Ninja Turtle stuff, but it's all in service of a story and not just, here's the space turtle action figures and here's the pirate turtle action figures. Anytime he does something crazy like this, there's a story reason for it. So you could imagine a line of Ninja Turtles figures where they've got these helmets and packs on their backs so that they can breathe, and that's just an absurd variation of Ninja Turtles, but it's in service of the story. So I think that's cool. Like I'm imagining what those action figures would be called. They sort of look like they're in scuba gear or something. But of course it's so that they can breathe on this island. Anyway, I just wanted to show that to you because it's a real neat thing in my collection now. I need to find a place to display this. And I'll be back again tomorrow for the 40th day already. It's nuts. It's kind of crazy doing a day calendar like this because I'm kind of living my year day to day by the show, and so I'm thinking about like exactly how many days have already passed this year. So it's really strange to think that we're already 40 days into the year almost, and I let Patreon choose an artist for tomorrow's issue. So I'll pick that issue based on what they chose, and I'll reveal who that artist is tomorrow. I got to see how many issues in my collection I even have of that artist. But anyway, thanks a whole lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Captain Logan. Happy reading.